We're live for the reaction. WrestleMania 38, Night 1, WrestleMania Saturday has just gone off the air. Stone Cold Steve Austin has just stunned Kevin Owens and wrestled in a match. It is the year 2022 and Stone Cold Steve Austin has had a match inside of a WWE ring. Cody Rhodes is back in WWE as well. It's a really significant night when it comes to recent WWE history, without a doubt. So we're going to get into all of it. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner as well, because man, there's a lot to get into. Now, it's difficult to kind of point out what the biggest story is coming out of tonight, whether it is Steve Austin's first match in 20 years or whether it's Cody Rhodes' return to WWE. I suppose for the more immediate future, it will definitely be Cody Rhodes' return. But, you know, in terms of the history book, Stone Cold Steve Austin's first match and final match of his career coming in Dallas, Texas, it's a big deal. It's a really big deal. So we're going to get into it. The show was opened up with the SmackDown Tag Team Championship match. Now, this one was really unfortunate, actually. Now, first of all, I was surprised that this opened the show, to be honest with you. I was surprised it opened the show because, you know, in recent years, they've always wanted to start the show off really hot, and usually it's with, you know, a main event match essentially opening the show is usually what they go with. Whether it's the WWE Championship match, the Universal Championship match, or something of that nature. So when I saw that, you know, the SmackDown Tag Team Titles match was going to be opening up, I thought that was quite curious. That was quite interesting. That's quite surprising, and I was quite curious with that. And they obviously had a big grand entrance with Shinsuke Nakamura and Rick Boogs. Pat McAfee's going crazy and doing all that kind of stuff, and then it just went completely wrong. The reason it went completely wrong is because in really some of the opening stages of the match, Rick Boogs tried a spot whereby he would have both Usos on his shoulders for a version of a Samoan drop. I believe he got, I don't know if it was Jimmy or Jay, but he got one of them up on the shoulder, and then the spot was to get the next person up on the shoulder. As he got the second Uso on the shoulder, his knee, you could see, visibly gave away. Now, we weren't sure if this was, you know, a continuation of the storyline, because, of course, the storyline previously was that he had got the match by having this feigning this knee injury, then eventually it was fine and all that kind of stuff. But it became very apparent very quickly that Rick Boogs did indeed have a knee injury. And it was later revealed later on by Michael Cole on commentary that it's more than just a knee injury. It's actually a torn quad. His quad has been torn from his patella, and because of that, he'll require surgery probably in the next couple of days. Now, obviously, torn quads are no joke. Of course, Triple H just retired, suffered a torn quad twice in his career. Kevin Nash famously or infamously suffered a torn quad, and most likely, and I'm not a doctor, so I can't give a prognosis or anything like that, but most likely one would assume that means Rick Boogs is going to be out for a real significant amount of time, probably close to a year, 9 months. That's how long it took Triple H to come back. That's how long it took Kevin Nash to come back, about 9 months. It's no joke of an injury, and it sucks. It really sucks. And because of that, they had to change the finish. It was very, very, very clear that they changed the finish on the fly, and they went with hitting the 1D on Shinsuke Nakamura for the victory, and they were scrambling, and it sucks because that was the opening of the show. Rick Boogs' first WrestleMania. He was getting over in general with the character. I'm assuming that it wasn't a case of they were supposed to win the bouts or anything like that. I don't think that was the goal. I think the Usos were always planned to win the match, but it sucks. It really does suck for Rick Boogs because, you know, he deserves, I think, for his work recently and all that kind of stuff, and just in the biggest stage of them all, to get a potentially, you know, career debilitating injury sucks. It just does. It absolutely sucks. So I really do sympathize and empathize with him for that one, because that's really, really unfortunate. We go to the next match, which was Drew McIntyre versus Happy Corbin. Nothing of substance really to write home about. The only thing, obviously, is that it was that Drew McIntyre kicked out of the End of Days. Drew McIntyre became the first person to kick out of the End of Days finisher in 6 years. Baron Corbin's been using that finisher on the main roster. And Drew McIntyre became the first person to kick out of the move, which of course is significant. But the match itself, look, coming into WrestleMania, nobody really had any expectations with this feud. I think people kind of felt a bit sorry for Drew McIntyre that he was kind of labeled with it and lumped with this feud, where it was like, man, before you were challenging for the WWE Championships the last 2 years at WrestleMania. Now you're in the second match, not even the opener, but the second match with Happy Corbin. And yeah, the match itself was fine. Kicks out at the end of days, and hits a Claymore. Post match, they did an angle whereby Drew McIntyre had his sword out and he chopped through the first and second rope. And the irony being is that when they actually re-tightened up the ropes, they re-tightened up the ropes. The ring looked terrible. It looked like an action figure ring where you tighten everything too tight and everything kind of bends in on each other. It didn't look great. But I guess the only positive coming out of this match is that it's over. Hopefully this feud is over. And I would assume coming out of WrestleMania, Drew McIntyre will most likely be feuding with probably Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship. I think that's probably the most likely direction that they're going for Drew McIntyre. So I think that's probably the best way to speak about it. Now, after this, after what was, honestly, an underwhelming beginning to WrestleMania Saturday, I think some people were concerned, thinking, well, okay, where is this going to go from here then? Right, okay, yes, the SmackDown Tag Team title match, that was snake bit, that's not their fault. Drew McIntyre versus Baron Corbin, no one had expectations from it. It was a short match. Where are we going to go from here? It did get considerably better. The Miz and Logan Paul defeated Rey Mysterio and Dominik Mysterio in, honestly, a match that was probably way better than it had any business being. And I think that my biggest takeaway coming out of this one is that, you can not be a fan of Logan Paul. I'm not. It's definitely not his brother as well. His brother was on the kickoff show and was just absolutely insufferable. Oh, he was absolutely insufferable. But, and you can be someone that's not a fan of Logan Paul and have your feelings on him and what he's done in the past. And I think that's all very valid and very fair. But what you can't deny watching that match tonight is he killed it. He absolutely 100% he killed it. He got it so right, like so right. He played his role perfectly. I thought he looked the part. I thought his work was solid. If anything, there was 4 wrestlers in the match, or 4 people in the match, and you'd have struggled to point out, okay, which one's the celebrity that maybe doesn't belong in there. Honestly, he just got it, and they did the spot where, he did the Three Amigos. Eddie Guerrero did the frog splash and the little shimmy and all that kind of stuff. He was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Miz and Logan Paul get the victory because Miz hits the skull-crushing finale on Rey Mysterio. The finish saw both Mysterios hit a 619 on Logan Paul, but as Logan Paul was on the ropes, the Miz jumped up, tagged himself in, and then hits the skull-crushing finale on Rey for the victory. Again, I thought it was way better than it had any business in being. And then in the closing moments of the match, after the match rather, when the Miz and Logan Paul are celebrating, the Miz hits a skull-crushing finale on Logan, and I was shocked by that. It must be that they're setting up something, but I feel that's very brave of WWE to feel like they can turn Logan Paul babyface, because you can't. This is what I mean. You can't, unless they're turning the Miz babyface, which I don't think they are, because I just don't think that's a good move. Because you can't have Logan Paul do the Three Amigos and a frog splash against Rey Mysterio in Texas and then try and turn him babyface 2 seconds later. That's just illogical. That's just doing the spot for the sake of the spot, but not for the story. So I'm not sure what the direction is there. Maybe the direction is that the Miz is going to be facing Logan Paul at, say, WrestleMania Backlash, right? Maybe that is the direction. But like I said, honestly, I felt like the match was way better than it had, any business really being. And again, I think that's a credit to Logan Paul, and I think that's obviously a credit to Rey Mysterio and The Miz, who are the veterans in this one and guided them through it. But I think you have to give a huge amount of credit to Logan Paul, and I don't like to, obviously, but I think you have to give a huge amount of credit because I think he got it absolutely right. And I think that's, again, good for him. Absolutely good for him. Next match, we have a new Raw Women's Champion. Bianca Belair defeated Becky Lynch. It was the best women's match of the night. Absolutely, if you're going to compare them both. I think a really positive thing about this show is that there were some real strong matches, and this was the period of time which I felt the show was really beginning to peak, because again, Bianca Belair, Becky Lynch, just tremendous. I mean, I could go through every single spot, but I wouldn't be able to do it justice, to be honest. And it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Again, I feel like we were discussing before in the previous stream about out of the women's matches, which one could have main evented WrestleMania, and it would have been this one. Absolutely, 100%, it was the better match. Bianca Belair is an absolute star. Becky Lynch came across as just an absolute mega star. I mean, Bianca Belair came across as the real ascending star, like she did last year. Becky Lynch came across as the established megastar. Her entrance with the Marvel logo and coming out in the car and all that kind of stuff, and the new look, it's money. It's absolute money, and I thought it was an absolutely tremendous match. And I don't know if usually I'd like to see feuds end at WrestleMania. I wouldn't be against this one continuing for the sake of I would like to see a pay-per-view main event. I would like to see Bianca Belair versus Becky Lynch main event, say WrestleMania Backlash. I think they're capable, because I just think that match was just absolutely fantastic. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I thought it was a real credit. And like I said, I think in comparison to the two women's championship matches, I think it was absolutely the best women's championship match of the night, 100%. Now the match that I'm sure everyone will be talking about, that being Seth Rollins versus a returning Cody Rhodes. Yes, Cody Rhodes has returned to WWE as expected, but I suppose one of the bigger surprises that it's not the old Cody Rhodes that was in WWE before. It's AEW. It's the AEW Cody Rhodes. It's the AEW Cody Rhodes is in WWE, the American Nightmare. He came out to Kingdom. He said wrestling has more than one royal family. It had the American Nightmare logo was everywhere, and it's difficult to say. I mean, you probably have to say it's match of the night. Stole the show. And that was tough because I felt that in the first maybe 5 or 10 minutes of this one, it got the longest match of the night. First 5 or 10 minutes, I felt that just the moment and the surrealness of the situation of seeing Cody out there and being in that moment and seeing AEW's version of Cody Rhodes out there or whatever kind of slowed things, shall we say, and it was a bit like the crowd was slightly flat initially after the big pop and chanting Cody or whatever. It was like, wow, what are we even witnessing? And then they went spot for spot, fall for fall, pedigrees, Cody cutters, power bombs, stomps, everything under the sun, you name it, they did it. And they did the finishing sequence, and even Cody hit the crossroads and Rollins kicks out, and he hits the closing sequences. He hits 2 crossroads in a row. He's going for a third, and he goes, no, I'm going to do bionic elbow, same as Dusty Rhodes. Does the bionic elbow, then a crossroads, then a 1, 2, 3. Now, of course, Cody's going to be on Raw on Monday. I don't know if this, Cody and Seth Rollins feud is going to continue. I don't know. Ultimately, we don't know. It'll be fascinating to see whether or not the Cody and Rollins feud does continue. If it doesn't continue, it like I said, I think initially, it just took a second. I felt like it took a second because maybe Cody just looked a bit, I don't know. It looked like, it was initially it was a bit slow, but then obviously, like I said, I think it was match of the night because I think it was just obviously, brilliant. And I think I think it's an absolute WrestleMania moment. I think it was, I can't do it really justice, really. It's it was fantastic. And again, like I said, I think that WWE deserves, I think, quite a lot of credit also, because they could have easily said, no, we're just going to, do our own thing, or we're going to go to what, we've had in the past with your old entrance music, or we're going to do this, we're going to do that. They could have done that, and that wouldn't have been the right call. If they had have done that, that wouldn't have been the right call. So I feel like that was the right thing that they did. And what does his future look like, I suppose, now, right? What does his future look like going forward in WWE? We know he's going to be on Raw, that we do know for sure, but a lot of other things we don't know at the moment when it comes to Cody Rhodes. We don't know his storylines. Logic would assume that he's going to be, I think, do you put the belt on him? Because we know the belts are going to be splitting again. So does the title go on to Cody Rhodes on Raw? What happens then? It's all of it is just staggering, really, isn't it? All of it is just absolutely staggering. And again, seeing that version of Cody Rhodes back in WWE is, beyond shocking, surreal. Not him coming out was shocking, because we knew that was going to happen. We knew he was there. We knew that he was the mystery that had been confirmed a while ago. That wasn't the shock. It was just surreal. Just because something's going to happen doesn't make it any less surreal. And that was the situation, really. It didn't make it any less surreal how just wild and crazy that whole situation is, and him leaving AEW. And I know he said that he's not going to, talk about it, and there's not going to be a shoot interview, and he's not going to do this, and he's not going to do that. And I understand that, but a lot of people are going to be watching that promo on Raw on Monday, right? A lot of people are going to be watching that promo on Raw Monday, and that's going to be fascinating to see. And it's probably the biggest talking point coming out of WrestleMania. It's probably the biggest talking point. Even coming out of tomorrow, right? The story is huge, absolutely huge, and it's going to be, again, beyond fascinating to see how this continues going forward. But match of the night, certainly. I don't think you could argue that. Absolutely match of the night. I thought it was absolutely, obviously, brilliant, fantastic, and We'll see what happens with that one. We'll see what happens, because I feel like it's it's just the beginning, really, isn't it? So that was great. Let's move on, because like I said, I do want to keep this relatively brief, because it's just been a long night, a really long night. Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey was next. Now, we were meant to have a tag team match with the New Day versus Sheamus and Ridge Holland, but that was cut due to time. Looked like they had to be out there by midnight, and you feel like they could have probably fit it in if they didn't do a million video packages throughout the show, certainly. But they didn't. They did a million video packages during the show. This one, again, it went a while. Ronda Rousey matches are kind of sometimes difficult to watch. I still think she's very green, and some of her moves look dangerous, and she tends to have good matches in WWE just by beating the hell out of people. I feel like that's what she tries to do. That I'm just gonna, and that's kind of their chemistry in Flair versus Rousey. They had a match at Survivor Series in 2018 where they did largely the same. They just beat the hell out of each other. They just beat the hell out of each other for 20 minutes, and that's what they did here. I think most people expected Rousey to win the SmackDown Women's Championship, so the fact that Charlotte Flair is retained here is surprising. It is very, very surprising. They did a finish whereby Ronda Rousey had Charlotte Flair in the armbar. She was tapping out. There was a ref bump. So Ronda Rousey gets up, tries to wake up the referee, big boot in the face, and Charlotte Flair pins her. The only reason I can think of is that they look at the SmackDown roster right now and they go, well, what else are we going to do? We need to continue it because We have to. And they're saving Rousey winning the title for SummerSlam or Money in the Bank, or Rousey's not going to be on the road completely until then, or she's going to take some time off. That's the only thing I can think of, because otherwise, that was very, very, very surprising, and I didn't expect that at all. So that was quite surprising. But the match itself I thought was okay. Finally, we had the main event, which of course was the KO show. Kevin Owens versus Steve Austin. Now, going into this one, again, we knew it was going to be some kind of choreographed fight, but it was way more than that. It was a match. It was a no-holds-barred match. And to be honest, they went nearly 14 minutes. Austin took bumps. He took bumps. He took a suplex onto concrete. So, legitimate bumps. And Steve Austin was over. I will be honest, it felt a bit odd that they had to set up, but I would love to know when the actual decision was made that they were going to do the match, because my only complaint would be if they knew they were going to do the match from the start, advertise it. Advertise that you're going to do a match because you'd sell more. I get the impression that the decision that this was going to be a match was probably really late, really, really late. Because otherwise they wouldn't have done the whole Kevin Owens show backdrop to it. I don't think they would have gone that route if that was the case. I feel like the whole, facade, if you will, of it being a Kevin Owens show and a talk show segment or whatever was just basically what can Steve do? What does Steve feel comfortable doing? But he looked great. Was he slower? Yes. But I feel like if you watched quite a few Stone Cold Steve Austin matches certainly after his neck injury, say like 2001, pretty much every Steve Austin match went to a brawl to the outside. Pretty much every Steve Austin match ended up fighting somewhere. So I thought it was great. I thought it, and will Steve Austin wrestle in another match? Probably not. You're watching that, probably not. And I think that probably went as best as it could be, considering the circumstances. And so I think that, I think it went as good as it probably could be. Like I said, considering the circumstances, I thought Kevin Owens did a great job. I thought Stone Cold Steve Austin did a great job. And, considering the night and the slow start to it, certainly, I thought, after the McIntyre match, which again wasn't bad, it was just, pointless. But I thought all of the other matches after that, the Miz versus the Mysterios, Bianca Belair versus Becky Lynch, Rhodes versus Rollins, Flair versus Rousey, and of course even that talk show main event, I felt like everything delivered. Absolutely, I felt like everything delivered. And I think that, everyone deserves a ton of credit for that. And it's interesting to think what's going to be on tap for tomorrow, because try following that, try following that. Anyway, guys, look, I'm out of here. It's been a long night. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.